Well, good morning. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those of you who want to get your California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the different parts of the license application and to give you some practical tips on how to complete the application correctly. And we want to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and your qualifications to get your California contractor's license. And we also want to help you get ready for your licensing exams and to give you links to a video that we produced about what you can expect on your test day. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the California government agency responsible for regulating the state's construction industry. I'm Globes. I am joined this morning by Anna Rodriguez. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Rick.
Wanted to first of all thank those of you when you registered. You saw that we had a couple questions. One of those was if you were either somebody looking to get your contractor's license for the first time, or if you were somebody who already has a contractor's license and you were looking to add a classification. Give us an idea of who's here today. And we had probably 98% of the people are looking to get their license for the first time. So that was very helpful. As far as the classifications, I would say probably about half the people. We had over 500 people register. For half the people are looking to get their B license. Some of the more popular license classifications are the C10, which is electricians. We also had C20, which is HVAC, C27, which is landscaping, C33, which is painting, C54, which is tile, C6, which is framing. So, but we had a ton, we probably had 25 different classifications. And I'm just going to let you know as we're hearing you type right now. So that's okay. So it'll be Anna and I going through the presentation today. So thank you again for joining us. What we're going to do here, just so we don't draw attention, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera. We're still going to be here. And then when we get to questions in a little while, we'll go ahead and bring our cameras back up. So, but we are going to have presentation slides here for you. So stand by just 1 second and we'll get ourselves started. Okay, here we go. Okay, please note that after a 3-month closure due to the COVID-19 health emergency, 7 of our CSLB's 8 test centers around the state have been reopened since mid-June. And we're working as quickly as possible so we can get through the backlog of exams that have built up during the closure. Last week, we administered about 1,100 exams. One of the things that makes it tougher on any given day, between 10 and 20% of our applicants fail to show up to take their test. So as you move through the process, be sure that you're good with your test date. Write it down, put it on your calendar, don't blow it off. Not only is that going to delay you getting your license, but it's also going to delay other people who are trying to get their license. It's going to push them back as well. Also, if you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to participate, you'll need to join us on WebEx. There's a banner with a link at the top of our homepage, cslb.ca.gov. And that's where you can also download the presentation to follow along, or you can watch now and download it later. We have clickable bonus links that appear on the slides throughout the presentation. Also, if you've downloaded it over the last couple of days, I'd encourage you to go back and download it again. We found out a couple of the links that we had were not hot links, so they didn't work when you clicked on them. So we've updated the files. So if you want those links, be sure to go back and download it again. If you want to watch the presentation, don't have anything else to do, just stay right here on either YouTube or Facebook, or obviously here on WebEx. We're going to throw out a lot of information to you, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We're archiving this video and we'll put it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch again. To ask a question, use the Q&A feature. You should see that on the right side of your screen. You can type your questions in the Q&A window and make sure you send the questions to all panelists. We tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how to document your work experience and what credit you can get for your education or your military service. Those questions are fine, but we would ask till you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop, just in case we are able to answer it there. And we'll go through all of the questions, or at least as many as we can at the end of our presentation. The presentation itself usually takes about 35 or 40 minutes. We'll leave the last hour and 20 minutes for questions. So that's the plan right now. Anna.
One other item. CSLB is trying to identify resources out there specifically targeting and encouraging women to get a career in construction. If you are a woman looking to get your contractor's license, or you've got some resources you'd like to share with us, please drop an email to social@csLB.org. cslb.ca.gov. We will repeat this address at the end of today's workshop. We appreciate any information that you are able to share with us.
Okay, thank you. And just a reminder, if you would please, during the times where I'm speaking, if you can just mute, because we are just hearing a little background noise on your side.
Okay,
Thank
sure.
you. Okay, this information obtained during the webcast is not, nor is it intended to be legal advice. While this webcast does contain general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines are communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. So if you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2020 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free through the CSLB website. You do see the bonus link at the bottom of your page. That was one of the bad links we have. So if you could download the presentation, you're going to have a good link there. You can also purchase a copy of the book if you'd rather have a hard copy through LexisNexis, that is the publisher. Again, links at the bottom of the screen for both of those.
Okay, here's a list of what we're going to cover today. We will take you through the process of applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Then, why get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, the types of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications. Then we will spend a lot of time giving you tips to fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We're also going to talk about fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you get ready for the exam or exams you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And then finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued. Things such as a bond, insurance.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First, who needs a license? Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. Now, the law does not let you break down that project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours the job will take totals more than $500 or $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what's the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. That is, in this case, it's section 7026.1. We have a link to that code at the top of the page, or in this case, yeah, we do have a link there if you want to download that. So here is the definition. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part that we've underlined. A contractor is any person consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation or company who or which undertakes or offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. So in other words, you don't have to do the work to actually break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for the construction job if that bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself why you should get a license. Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. Also, it allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanics lien law. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with a fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and/or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere in between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a licensed preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, it's important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, which are also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operation of the company. Here's a short list of the minimum qualifications you'll need. First, you must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or a valid Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or a contractor in the trade you're applying for. Or you can get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. And we'll spend a lot of time talking about how you demonstrate the experience on your application in just a few minutes. In some cases, a college education, either a bachelor or an associate's degree, may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. If you have a 4-year degree in a construction-related field, for example, a number of state universities offer a construction management program. Having that type of degree may give you the maximum 3 years education in lieu of work experience. In this situation, you'll have to have the additional 12 months of field experience to meet the minimum of 4-year work experience required within the last 10 years. But there's also some business classes you can take that may earn you up to 2 years of educational credit. But that's a very topic specific, and we recommend that you call our licensing information center to discuss the specific classes with a supervisor before you submit your application. You can also send an email to licensing@cslb.ca.gov. We'll give that email address out later on. We'll be able to answer some of your general questions here. If you get too specific, we may not be able to give you a foolproof answer. Also, completing an apprenticeship program may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. Some of your military service may count as well. Towards the bottom of the page, you can see that we have a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. The license qualifier must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is on the specific trade covered by that license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we'll discuss later. Those licenses only require that the qualifier take the law and business exam.
As we mentioned, the qualifier must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We are not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver for taking one or both exams if very specific situations occur. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you're going to need to do is to determine before you apply for your license which type of entity that your business is going to be. Here they are. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, and that's where the owner or a responsible managing employee may serve as a license qualifier. About 64% of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownership. Second is a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. About 32% of the licensees in California are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or a responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. That's about 2% of our licensees. Finally, there is a limited liability company, or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or a responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. Only about 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filing your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of the page. First is Class A, or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C, or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skills and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades. Examples for this class include C10 Electrical Contractors, C20 HVAC Contractors, C27 Landscaping Contractors, C33 Plumbing Contractors, C39 Roofing Contractors, C46 Solar Contractors, and C53 Swimming Pool Contractors. And that's just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
Okay, next we're going to take a very quick look at the 2 forms that you're going to need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is a link at the bottom of the page, so be sure to download the presentation. We'll give you a closer look at the different sections on each of these forms a little bit later. Okay, let's go ahead and break down the steps of the application process. First, you're going to need to identify who is going to be the qualifier for your license. If you're using an RME or a responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for the exam waiver. Next, make sure you complete the correct application, and you've got 2 options. One is the application for the original contractor's license. That's what most people will use. The second is if you are going to go for an examination waiver, it's the application for original contractor's license with the examination waiver 7065. Okay, the next step is to determine your company's name. Take a look at the actual application for some examples. We've got a long list on there. Some things you'll need to keep in mind are that the name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than the one you're getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you can't have a name of John Smith Plumbing, Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name that you've got registered with the California Secretary of State's office. Also, the names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. Again, that's for corporations or LLCs, not for sole ownerships. So again, the names must match exactly with what's at the Secretary of State's office, and the name of everyone on your Secretary of State's registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what's called a DBA, which stands for doing business as. The main thing to remember here is the DBA cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and on all your contracts.
Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date the application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your exams. If so, complete a request form and submit with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next is a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for criminal background checks. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespersons. If you're in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called LiveScan. You can get an updated list of LiveScan locations around California broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We've got the link here, or you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and do a search for LiveScan. You'll also see a link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you're out of state, it's going to be a little bit tougher for you to get us fingerprints. That's because the law requires that you submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. And those can take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI, Department of Justice, to process. So when things settle down some more with the COVID health emergency, you may want to actually consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scans done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also takes into consideration. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2013. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back 3 years from the application date to 2017. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on the criminal conviction.
Okay, the next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for our applicants. It's how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years of experience within the last 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2010. The experience must be at no less than at a journeyman level, or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner-builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified, as opposed to a trainee who can perform the trade without supervision, or one who is program.
There is a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. They are just examples.
Okay, so at the top of the chart we're going to be showing over the next few slides is the classification and the type of experience that you're trying to demonstrate. The first example is a journey person experience. The overall theme we'll keep repeating here is the more specific the description you can give us, the better. So note, the work experience form should be completed by your certifier. That's somebody who has the knowledge and observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. And that person does not, repeat, they do not have to be a licensed contractor.
So our first example is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work, like this. Bob performed rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something more generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For a 4-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example for the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job sites performing rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something more generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at that supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something generic like this. Residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out of state, military, on federal land, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a 4-person, or a supervising employee. A tip: be specific about your duties and your employment circumstances. Our next example is for a C27 landscaping contractor. First, for experience at the journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be, Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete and mow strips, and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a 4-person would be something like this. Jane oversaw other staff at a job site performing landscape construction, maintenance, and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. Again, something unacceptable would be a description like this, something very generic. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be, as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicant supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would be something more generic, something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. So as you can see, we want something that's more detailed, has more information. Finally, for out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work that you did for the military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and also your employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of all the applications we receive. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide this additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You only need to provide this information if requested by a CSLB staff. On the lower right of the screen, you'll see a link to the publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see that the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you've been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you are applying for a Class B general contractor license and need to use owner-builder experience to meet that experience qualification. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, if you click on the link to view, you can print this publication. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you were asked to provide it in the future. Remember, your goal is that you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify this experience.
Okay, one other note. CSLB does get more than 1,000 applications every month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They've got two pieces of advice they wanted us to pass on. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take the trade exam by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you'll need to fill out your application. But before getting it to CSLB, please double check to make sure you didn't miss anything. Be sure to sign it and date it as well. You'd be surprised how many people forget to do that. And then we have to send it back and get it redone. It takes more time for you. Also, don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You'll pay the $200 initial license fee after you pass your exam or exams. So $330 now for the app fee, $200 later after you pass your exams. Then put your application package in the mail to CSLB. You can also hand deliver it to one of our public counters. And we've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to our different office locations.
Now that we have gone through the information you'll need to include, here's a closer look at the application itself so you can see where it goes. This is section 1. This is where you're going to list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classifications and the entity that you are applying for. Make sure it's not misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provide in this section here matches exactly the business name that you have registered with the Secretary of State. In line number 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list here in section 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. In section 2 of the application, you will select your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction projects. The qualifier will be the person taking the examinations. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you are the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100% here. On line number 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity you have selected. You can find more information on this on page 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you're going to sign and date your application. Section number 4 is where you're going to list the personnel information for all the remaining personnel that will be listed on your license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you want to make sure that all personnel that you have listed with the Secretary of State must be listed here in this section. Again, if you need to have more than 4 people, then you can go ahead and make copies of this form here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application here in section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here. But section 6 is where you see the qualifier, education, apprenticeship, licensure, and military. You may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certification of completion. Get those sealed transcripts sent to you, then include it with your application packet. Do not have the program send transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take the chance that in case they were not able to match them up with your application. So make sure that they send them to you, you send them in with your application. As long as they're sealed, it won't be a problem. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. The credit is not given on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information for your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure to check the box in line number 2. If you're applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own project, make sure to mark the box in line number 4. Part number 2 of the work experience certification will be filled out by a certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind that if you were working on a part-time basis, you're only going to receive 50% of the credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years so that you can meet that 4-year requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's description of classification booklet available on our website. Now remember, we don't want you to copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers to be a critical duty for the classification that you are applying. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certification is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. The next form we're going to be discussing is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you are applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on your property, and the experience must be verified through building permit, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line number 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project with you and what trades did they perform. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
Okay, a lot of information there that Anna just covered. So I also want to let you know as while Anna was doing that, I tried to go through a lot of the questions, answer the ones I could quickly take care of. So as we're going through this, if you want to take a look at some of the questions that are there, maybe somebody has asked something that you wanted to ask, take a look at some of the answers. Some of the things I have purposely left for Anna and I to take care of at the end when we actually have time for the Q&A that we can talk about. So I've answered some of them there. Can go ahead and continue. I see more questions coming in as we're speaking. So also, we want to let you know that it's a good time to remind you that we are recording the workshop. We will post the video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch just in case you've missed anything. Okay, so now you've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of the application? Here's 2 resources. First, there is a secured check. You'll need your application fee number, a contractor PIN number to get your update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date that we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on, and you'll know that the date, if the date shown is after the date that we likely received your paperwork, then it's likely we're busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB does receive hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day. We process them in the order that they're received. So don't be surprised also if you see a check has been cashed, but you're not getting information about your application being processed. The cashier's unit is the first place where the checks, when the envelope is opened, the check gets pulled out, that goes to a whole different unit. So they're not the same people that are actually processing it. So chances are your check will be cashed before your application is being processed. So don't be surprised or don't wonder why it's been cashed if the application hasn't been processed. Obviously, it takes a lot longer to process an application than it does to put a check in a stack of checks going to the bank. Okay, so be sure to take extra time to get your application right so you won't have to have it sent back to you to correct it, and then you have to start the whole process again. Now, when your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for your examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks before your exam date. And with our test centers now reopened, we've added an additional session in the late afternoon and early evening to help us catch up with the 3 months that we were closed. If you're an applicant who's we've got our, again, 8 test centers around the state of California. We would encourage you to take your exam at the center closest to you. And in alphabetical order, the centers are in Berkeley, which actually is closed right now. Also Fresno, Norwalk, Oxnard, Sacramento, San Bernardino, San Diego, and San Jose. Now, if you're an applicant whose first language is not English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads the exam questions to you. Question number 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete your examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You can't just show up on the day of your exam at a test center with somebody to translate the exam for you. Also, we've got study guides available for each exam. Included in each study guide, you'll find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for your examination. The study guides are available on our website. There is a bonus link for them at the bottom of your screen. We did get a couple questions about that, so that's where you're going to find the study exams. Also, when you get an exam date, make sure you don't miss it. If you do fail to appear for the exam, you're going to have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee to reschedule. That fee can be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control.
We do have some new COVID-19 procedures in place for test centers. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video, What to Expect on Test Day, that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
My handsome man doing that video. You'll take your exam on a touchscreen computer. So before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that'll take you through the process. Now, the exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll see a space on each question where you can, if you'd like, submit a comment about that question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or you may have the amount of time that you've got to complete your exam will be reduced. And you will get your results at the end of the exam.
If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the examination. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within an 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee.
Okay, after you pass your exam, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay the $200 for your initial license fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you've got. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you've got employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. So be sure to see our website for those amounts. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on the website, and it will be processed automatically in real time. So if you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office and chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you're going to be soliciting business, talk to potential customers, or signing contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you're going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more information on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, September 4th, 2020, will expire on September 30th, 2022. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need to remind yourself so that you don't forget. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or you change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we've got on file. So if you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to get it and take a chance at your license expiring. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of the license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson or to solicit and sell and negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. This person is called a home improvement salesperson, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel record on license are the only people who can sell, solicit, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, license qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. An HIS can work for more than one contractor. A licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate an HIS with their license.
There's a couple of exceptions to note here. First, for those of you who only schedule appointments for the contractor or registered at HIS, you don't have to have that. And bona fide service and repair people. Yes, these are the folks that you call out for repairs, including things like air conditioning, heating, and plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ unregistered salespeople. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. Okay, so that's the presentation. It is time now to answer your questions. So put aside our notes. What we're going to do, Ann and I will turn on our camera so you guys can see us. So it's not so one way just looking at a slide. So we'll go ahead and turn our cameras on here, and we'll start going through the list of questions that you provided to us. What I'm going to do is, if you're following along, I'm going to just go up to the top of the list, and the ones I haven't answered, we're going to go ahead and try to get through. Okay. First one is, how long does it currently take to process an application? I have a waiver for an exam form, and I'm mailing my application with a check today. Anna, what can you tell us about processing times?
So processing times are available on our website. You could go currently right now on our website, look at processing times, and it will tell you what date received we're working on. And so you can check your status by date that you send it in.
Okay, next question. I've worked for more than 10 years in the construction industry in South Florida as a project manager. Plus, I have a master's degree in project management. Is that valid to satisfy a criteria?
What we encourage you to do, remember the requirement is 4 years within the last 10 years. And so what we would encourage you to do is to send in your work experience certificate. Somebody has to fill it out for you, complete the certificate, mail it in, and then once it lands on a technician's desk, they will be able to tell you how much credit they're going to be able to give you.
Okay, next one is if a person has a C23, which is an ornamental metal contractor, do they have to take the law and business exam again? Well, if they've already taken it once and have gotten the license, it's a little unclear, but you only have to take it and pass it once. I know we had another question there about inactive status, and if they needed to take the exams again, the answer would be no. So if somebody already has a license, they only have to take the law and business exam. If you're in a situation where you've got a license and let's say you've got a C10 license, an electrical license, and you want to add a solar license classification to it, you don't have to take the law and business exam again. You only have to take the trade one. So the law and business, you only have to take once, as long as you're keeping your license going.
Correct.
Anything to add?
No, that's correct.
All right. Okay. Hazmat contractors, is that considered a C class?
We have a list of, we have a description of classification booklet that lists all of the classifications that we offer. And so what you want to do is take a look at that list there. It gives you a brief description of what you can do, what type of work you can do under each classification that CSLB offers. And so you'll want to take a look at that and see which is the best license classification for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and there is a hazmat certification. We also do have an asbestos abatement contractor, which is something that works with a lot of hazardous materials. Okay, next, downloading a slideshow. Right now, if what you want to do, at the top of the screen, there is a green banner which advertises this workshop. You just go there, it says download presentation. Try to do it within the next couple hours because we'll probably remove that later this afternoon. But go ahead, yeah, please download it. That's how you do that. Okay, next question is, I have a fraud misdemeanor that's 15 years old. Will it show on my background check or will it automatically disqualify?
So with that, as we mentioned, we're looking for certain specific information, right? We're looking back 7 years for felonies, 3 years for misdemeanors. So that's what we're looking for. But yes, sometimes it's been the case where people have been told that something's been expunged, erased from your record. But since we compare our information with the FBI and also with the Department of Justice, oftentimes they do show up on your record. That doesn't automatically disqualify you, but CSLB will be aware.
Okay, the next one, as a project manager for a B general contractor license, what is required? I'm guessing it says, I don't know that word, but I'm guessing it's meant to describe this qualification. Again, looking for experience for the B, and then the next one also, Anna, if you want to handle, talks about owner builders. So if you can talk just again about the specifics with the B license and owner builders.
Okay, just so you know, Rick, for some reason I can't see the questions. So if you can read them to me, that'd be great.
I sure will.
Yes. So what was the question about the owner builder, Rick? I'm sorry.
Well, there was a couple questions. First one, just asking about explain more about the owner builder. It was kind of a generic thing, but maybe you can just go over. I know you had the slide that talked about the form for the B.
Sure. So with the owner builder is only going to be filled out by people who are trying to get a B license, the general construction license, and you are trying to use experience of that you own, your own project. So that form is very specific. You would have to have a permit number. It has to be verifiable. It has to be through either permits, as we mentioned, or also final inspections, things of that nature. But you are able to receive some sort of credit to qualify towards the 4 years of experience.
Okay, next question has to do with how long does it take to process an application after fingerprinting? Well, I'll just part of that depends on what they're going to find when they do the fingerprinting. If there is some kind of criminal history that you've got there, especially if it's something from many years ago or it's something from another state, some things that actually can take the FBI or DOJ a little bit longer to clear. So those are the things that kind of take time. And you can maybe speak more to it, is for the normal applicants, how long does it take for them to get cleared off fingerprint?
there's so many caveats. There's so many different, everybody's going to be a little bit different only because, we send this off to the Department of Justice and to the FBI. And so some come back very quickly, some take longer. And so also the amount of time that it takes for you to return when a tech gets assigned your application and they're working on it, they will send, if they have questions for you, the turnaround time, that also changes the processing times. So there's different caveats, but in general, what you can do again is look at our processing times that are on our website currently, and you can see what date they're working on.
Okay, one that kind of ties into that is they've said, I've already submitted my application, waiting on a time to take the test. When do I have to do my fingerprints? So if you can just cover again what the process is, when they're going to get that information about their fingerprints.
Sure. So you can do it simultaneously. You don't have to wait to have your fingerprint results back before taking your examination. What happens is you send in your application. We will send you both your live scan packet for you to go and have your fingerprints done, and we will also send you a test date. Usually, your test date is 3 weeks out from the time that your application posts.
All right, next question. Do past supervisors need to verify, or can any employee, a lead person, a coworker, verify your work?
Good question. So it doesn't have to be a licensed contractor, and it doesn't have to be your previous supervisor. Anybody who has knowledge that you have at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years, and remember, we're looking at a journeyman level. So if there's somebody that can certify you, it doesn't have to be a supervisor. In fact, on the work certification form that we went through, there are different categories at the bottom of the page. It can be a foreperson, a fellow employee, a business associate. There's different categories at the bottom. If you work for a union, somebody at the union can also certify your work experience. Not a problem.
Okay, next question. If you're trying to register a new RME, which is responsible managing employee, who you would use to qualify your license, do they have to simultaneously register to make their license inactive?
Their license has to be inactive. Yes, it does have to be inactive.
Okay. Another thing I would caution those of you who are looking to get qualifiers. There are companies that are out there offering to link you up with somebody who can qualify your license. We would just encourage you to be really careful about doing that. Sometimes it might be situations where that person is, had their license for 20, 30, 40 plus years. They're basically retired and they're keeping their license on inactive status. The company may try to talk them into qualifying somebody else's license, pay them a little money every month on the side. The person doesn't necessarily realize they're supposed to be in a position to actually be in charge of the construction operation. It just leads you down a very scary road. So if you're going to be looking for companies that can help you with pairing you up with a qualifier, be very careful about it. Be sure that you've got a lot of conversations. You know who that person's going to be. You've got what you feel is going to be a good working relationship, but they understand the importance of the role that they play. Because if there ends up being problems, that the board is going to be looking at them as well. So don't get yourself into a tough situation. So the word to the wise: just be careful. There are companies down there. It may be perfectly legitimate and it connects you with a good qualifier, but just be careful if they're doing something kind of flaky where they're just trying to pay somebody every month to let them use their qualifications to get your license. I'll get off my soapbox now.